All right, last but not least on my series of videos is Daniel chapter 9. We still have plenty more to go to end our series in the book of Daniel. But to help you with Daniel chapter 9, you have a prayer that Daniel's bringing because he believes that there's 7 more years to this Babylonian exile. But then Gabriel comes back up on the scene after this prayer. And really, it's a revival type prayer. He's praying for his people because he knows that Israel has broken God's law. He recognizes that from reading back from Jeremiah the prophet. You'll see that in verse 2 of chapter 9. And just see the posture of fasting, sackcloth, and ashes, prayer, petitions. Like, that's how righteous Daniel was. Talking about a son of man figure, Daniel really was is a faithful son of man like figure. Now, obviously, we know Jesus is the ultimate son of man. He is the true son of man with the capital S. But this Daniel going in and being an intercessor for the people, God's people, reminds God of his covenant, which God doesn't, in a sense, God doesn't need the reminder, but God is, he's basically just praying to God saying, hey, like, just remember your covenant for your people and see, like, yeah, we've done wrong. And he admits the wrongs of his people. He's calling forth a holistic confession for God's people. And he admits, all Israel has broken your law. We've all turned away, refusing to obey you. I mean, this is not, like, what more gospel-centered can you get with this? Of the, all have turned away, all have, the Romans 1 motif of everyone has fallen away, for all have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God, Romans 3. No one is innocent. Everyone is guilty. No one seeks after righteousness. Like, this is clear in that Daniel's presenting before God, and the lack of obedience. And realizing, hey, God, this is the reason why you brought judgment upon us. And so then, he basically says, Lord, would you just remind us of your goodness, your mercy, that the salvation you brought us through Egypt, when you delivered us through the Exodus, and then that they would not be an object of ridicule, that they would not look and say, look, their God can't save them. He's asking for that not to happen anymore. But then he gets an answer to his prayer, and it's one of the most it's another confusing passage. It's hard to understand the 70 weeks of years. So basically what we get from this passage, and I'll give you kind of a bird's eye view, is basically the angel comes to him. Gabriel sends another vision. He says, I've had this first vision. It's reached me extreme weariness about the time of the evening offering, which I find very interesting. He uses the word evening offering because there's no temple to go to offer an evening offering because they've been brought to exile, but he still has this mindset of faithfulness to God. His whole time that he's in exile is still, even though he's away, his mindset is on God's kingdom work. And his kingdom mindset of God's time, not human time. And so then he says, well, consider this message. 70 weeks are decreed about your people and your holy city. So what is he saying? Saying, bro, you ain't got 7 years. You got 7 times 70. You got a long time, bro, is basically what he's telling them. And I find it interesting in this because if you really outlay it out, I meant 7 weeks. So really you go the 7 times 7 of the 49. He's basically saying, hey, you've got 7 weeks, but those really are measuring out to really years in the long run. So the structure of the 70 weeks is really that 7 weeks is measuring out the 79 years symbolically. Basically, there's still a completion of what needs to happen before Jerusalem is restored, and ultimately that would be fulfilled in the Ezra Nehemiah period, right? Jerusalem would be restored after exile. There would be a rebuilding. But then you've got this ambiguity of a 62 week, which measures out in the 70 weeks model of 62 weeks equals 434 years. Basically, that's symbolic of a long period of waiting until that anointed one comes. Well, who's this anointed one? Well, in verse 25, it says, "Know and understand this from the issuing of the decree to restore and build Jerusalem until an anointed one, the ruler, will be 7 weeks and 62 weeks. It will be rebuilt with a plaza and a moat in difficult times." I think it's very interesting that's brought up as well, because it gives us a very holistic model that ultimately this anointed one is Christ, right? He's the ultimate anointed one who fulfills all purposes of this prophecy. But also knowing that that there would be many anointed ones that would be brought forth throughout history, many prophets who would come into play. Ultimately, we know that the Ezra Nehemiah period is where that first immediate fulfillment is brought forth. But then we see the ultimate anointed one who is cut off. That's talked about later on. It says that after those 62 weeks, the anointed one will be cut off and will have nothing. Again, that is also fulfilled in Jesus' crucifixion, that the covenant confirmed and the sacrifices ended. Because if you notice, it says they will destroy the city and the sanctuary, and it also talks about them having nothing. That all those sacrifices that were brought forth in the old covenant, they'll come to an end because of a fulfillment of Christ being the ultimate sacrificial lamb that is to come. So again, very much interesting, and again, it all goes back to this holistic biblical view of immediate fulfillment and then final fulfillment in Jesus Christ. Okay, Kyle, then what do we do with the last, you get into the 62 weeks plus the 7 weeks, you've got 69 weeks. What do we do with the final week, this final 7 years? Because obviously we know that 7 years is not, like 7 years has passed, right? I think it gives us very much a clear sense in the Old Testament prophecy. We see that this final week actually symbolically stretches forward. It's already fulfilled in Christ's death and resurrection, but yet we're still waiting, in a sense, for that final week to happen in order that Jesus would ultimately return for that second advent. So again, when you're looking forward to the set, and again, I've got my book with me because I've been reviewing over this. You've got it pointing forth in this way. The first is the rebuilding of Jerusalem during the first 7 weeks or 49 years. The second is the coming and death of the Messiah. That's in verse 26, which I just talked about. And during the 7 plus 62 weeks, which equals out to 483 years. And the third is the persecution by the Antichrist, the coming ruler of the people, and his defeat in the final 70th week. These are all symbolically tied to this salvific history that is being informed in this passage. Now, what's really interesting, if you look at the Christ-centered exposition, verse 26 informs us that after 62 weeks plus the prior 7, equaling 69 weeks or 483 years, the anointed ruler, the Messiah, will be cut off and will have nothing. If 458, if you're getting really technical and you were getting really literal, if 458 BC is correct, 483 years would bring us to it would bring us to CA AD 26 through 27, the time of Christ, which is pretty interesting that brings us to that, as Dr. Aiken would say in his book, amazing accuracy. So anyways, I thought that would be somewhat helpful to you. If that's not helpful to you and you're like, hey, I'm just going to chalk this all up and just read the Christ-centered exposition, do that. Do whatever's helpful for you. But ultimately, what do we take away from this whole entire thing? Is God will answer Daniel's prayer, but it will not be fully answered until Jesus comes. And yet, that prayer is still being answered because Jesus came. He was the anointed one that was cut off. He was crucified. He rose from the grave. But we're awaiting the day for when he's going to come back, that anointed one, and make all things right. And he's going to bring forth where that abomination of desolation is all the sin and all the antichrist worldly rebellion will be brought to an end. That's where we get Daniel chapter 9.